Carrie, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. I know you've had a lot of mentors and people who've been influential forces in your life. Can you talk a little bit about some of the most powerful people who have mentored you and the advice or lessons that they imparted on you that you feel would be helpful for others?
Yeah, I would say that there's three people that come to mind pretty obviously, and the first one is my father, Charles Schwab. He is a man of humility, and he's a very generous man, and he also was all about democratizing investing, making investing and creating wealth more accessible to everyday Americans. And I think that's what sort of launched me to take that beyond to women and other disenfranchised populations. And then my mom, my parents divorced when we were pretty young, and my dad will tell you he was in debt, he had no money, and it was a big struggle in our family. And I saw, I think subconsciously, the importance of women being financially independent, and just seeing what my mom went through. And then lastly, my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, also very generous. They lived a pretty simple life, but they did so much for others. They were big believers in education. Of course, this is a lot of years ago when college was a lot less, but they helped a lot of people in their lives, young people, get to college who otherwise, without their help, they would never have gone on. So I would say that boils up to sort of who I am as a person.
What have you learned about building resilience or facing the types of adversities that are inevitable in any career and as you navigate life chapters?
I think bringing people along. I'm very much an includer and want to hear other people's opinion. I also want people to take part of what I'm trying to do and then they own it. So that to me is how you really affect change and bring people along. So that's been a big one for me.
When you look at your career, what do you hope are the types of insights that people take away from how you've navigated your career and the ways in which you've used your platform to be such an impactful force on issues that are important to you?
Yeah, so inclusion was obviously one of them, but also what I learned along the way is have a vision. And it sounds sort of, out there, but it's so true. When you put your sights on something way beyond and that you have a passion around it, and that's what keeps you focused and strong and going for it. And I remember when I was at Schwab, this is 15 years ago, and I had a new boss, and I was really out there on behalf of women and other populations and doing so much for the company. And our first meeting, she says, "I don't really know what you do." And I went home with tears in my eyes, feeling so frustrated. And of course I thought, obviously I'm not doing much for the company. Maybe I should just quit. And then, I gave myself 24 hours to be upset. And then I realized I'm not going to let any person get in the way of what I am trying to do. Brush off that negative voice and move forward. And that's how I've done it. I just give myself the time to be a little, grieve or whatever the word is, and then move forward. And that's about the vision, right?
I love that advice, or give yourself that moment to just feel it and then put it behind you, or just find the steps forward.
Yeah.
If you were to give a piece of advice to a young person starting out in their career, what are one or two things that you think would be helpful for them to know going into the world that we are right now?
Well, I think networking for one. I went through a leadership program in my very late 30s, early 40s, and I was never a networker. I was too afraid to seek out other like-minded women or mentors or people I aspired to be. I thought, why would they want to bother with me? And going through this leadership program, I realized, and of course getting older, I realized that women want to help women. They want to bring people along. And when a young person comes to me, I feel very proud and honored that they have come to me. So one piece of advice is don't be afraid to ask and seek out mentors or role models.
And I think for a lot of women, networking is not second nature, and you have to be intentional about it.
Yes, absolutely.
When you look at the work that you're doing with financial literacy and really empowering in such a powerful way from an education perspective, How do you think about that in the context of women and giving them the tools and that knowledge?
Well, as you know, women, we do have circumstances that get in the way of us being independent, or not independent, but just really comfortable with finances. You know, first of all, we've got the structural issues. You know, we live longer, we earn less, and of course, at this global conference, you know, in the United States, it's about 80 cents on the dollar, but we heard it's 50% in some other countries. So and then of course the divorce rate, and we go in and out of the workforce to care for children or parents. So that all rolls up to meaning, guess what? We have to be really disciplined and engage in our finances if we are going to have the financial security that we deserve. So that's why financial literacy is so important. And by the way, parents talk to their daughters differently than their sons. With their daughters, they talk about savings and household expenditures, but with their sons, they talk about investing and debt management, which are critical to wealth building. So we're, as parents, subconsciously, I assume, are perpetuating those stereotypes and setting our daughters behind right out of the gate. So my advice for anyone who has young people, young women in particular, and boys too, make sure you bring them along, the young women along, so that they can have the life that they deserve.
What's the best piece of financial advice you received from your dad?
Participate in the market. I told the story yesterday when I was in my early 20s and I saved, or I put some money away in my retirement account. It's sort of my first, real putting money away for the future. And I called my dad and I asked him, what should I invest in? And he said, just pick 2 equity funds. And he mentioned a few of our competitors. Buy one of their funds, 2 different ones. And I remember being so disappointed because I thought he was going to tell me the hot stock of the day. And I look back now and just laugh because he's absolutely right. It's not how much money you have, it's about participating in the market for the long term. And the longer you have, the more time your money has to grow and compound and really set you up for more success.
And it's so true with women in the investment gap. That's
Yeah.
such a just start. Last question for you, or 2 last questions.
Okay.
You're so well known, obviously, for financial literacy and the work that you're doing on behalf of so many in this area. What does money mean to you? What does it represent?
Independence. I mean, that's the bottom line. As I mentioned, when my parents divorced, my mom was a traditional homemaker, and I could see how it affected her. And to be honest with you, I've never not worked. I think my first job was at 13 with a paper route, which I know a lot of women have done as well, other women, but I have literally never not worked, through summers and then obviously after college, and because I'm afraid of not having that independence.
Last question for you. If you were to rewind the clock to those early days in your career, what's one piece of advice to your younger self that you wish you'd either been given or that you followed?
Well, being given is definitely finding role models. I always knew I wanted to succeed in something. I actually thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted so badly to grow and so forth. And I would say that it didn't come naturally to me. And I was always in angst of what am I going to do? And to be honest with you, I fell into the financial literacy, sort of subconsciously. When I was young, I was a financial consultant, and I found myself organizing workshops for women. I don't know why I did it. I just was really passionate about women, again, having their financial independence. So that sort of evolved me, and my whole career has been an evolution built on that. And then my philanthropy was around women, and then because I was so involved with women, I was asked then to run the women's initiative at Schwab. So everything built on itself, and then because of my advocacy for people, I was asked to run the Charles Schwab Foundation. So it's just been a big evolution, and I never would have thought in my mind, I didn't know this kind of profession existed, but it's been wonderful.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for those great insights and the work that you do. I know you've impacted so many and are continuing to do so. So we appreciate you sitting down with us.
Oh, thanks, Moira.